Welcome to the Ave Goddess podcast with spiritual detective Dr. Joanna Kujawa and its motto, if you want to be spiritual, ask difficult questions. In this podcast, we discuss Mary Magdalene, the archetypes of the Ave Goddess, new forms of consciousness they inspire, as well as the interconnection between sexuality and spirituality. You can join the conversation by signing to the Ave Goddess podcast, my YouTube channel, Dr. Joanna Kujawa, and even better, through my book, The Ave Goddess, Mary Magdalene and the Goddesses of Eros and Secret Knowledge, published by Sacred Stories. Today, we will have a fascinating conversation with Veronique Flayol, who is a tour guide and a lecturer from France and specializes in Mary Magdalene's life in France. Hello, Veronique. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very happy to be with you.
And I'm very happy to talk to you again, because Veronique Flayol was very helpful for me when I was writing my book, The Ave Goddess, and I wanted to clarify all the confusion about Mary Magdalene in Southern France, and she was very knowledgeable, and I really relied on her expertise there. So, Veronique, would you like to share with our listeners the tradition of Mary Magdalene in Southern France? Where does it come from? What is the difference between tradition and a legend? Maybe we start with this. What is the difference between tradition and a legend?
Yes, so we have this very important difference where this is, in fact, the tradition and the legends are not the same. For a legend, it is something that has a story that has been totally invented and who has never happened. But for a tradition, when we call this Provincial tradition, we are talking about a story which has been transmitted orally through the centuries until, of course, it has been written on a book. But at the very beginning, the tradition is a oral story transmitted from the beginning, and something which has not been written before.
So could you tell us the story of Mary Magdalene in Southern France, basically how she got there? So my understanding is that about 10 or 15 years after the resurrection, Mary Magdalene arrived in Southern France. So could we pick up from this? How did she leave the Holy Land and how she got to Southern France according to the tradition?
So this Provincial tradition tells us that probably between 45 and 47, the companions of Jesus, and among them, of course, Mary Magdalene, were thrown on a very small boat without horse and sail from Palestine, from Holy Land, in order to the sea, in order for them to die, but probably protected by the Holy Spirit, this boat landed on the shores of Les Saintes Maries d'Amer, which is a small fisherman village located about 1 hour far away from Marseille. And from there, the companions and Mary Magdalene went and spread in all parts of Gaul, which was it was called Gaul at this time. They went to Gaul and to deliver the gospel and also the good news of the resurrection.
And who were the companions of Mary Magdalene according to this tradition who went with her to Southern France from the Holy Land?
So in this tradition, we say that Magdalene was accompanied by her sister Martha, who was also on the boat. And for her, when they decided to spread in a part of Provence, she went north to Avignon, where she made a miracle related in the Golden Legend and in the life of Rabat-Mort. And then she finished her life in a small town called Tarascon, where we had also a brother called Lazarus, and Lazarus went to Marseille, and he became the first leader of the Christian community in Marseille. Then we had friends of them. We had, for instance, Maximinus. Maximinus was the first, he became the first bishop of Aix-en-Provence. a place where Magdalene also joined him to preach. We had the young blind man called Sidonius, who Jesus gave him back sight. We had also the two Marys, Marie Salome and Marie Jacobée, who were Virgin Mary's sisters, and who went also with them and stayed in Les Saintes Maries de la Mer, where the boat landed. We had also other people, and among them some waitresses like Suzanne or Marcel, and other people who were in fact the close companions of Jesus and who escaped from Holy Land.
So thank you for this, Veronique. According to what I know, most of this information comes from the Golden Legend, right?
Yes, the Golden Legend was a book written at the 13th century by an Italian Dominican monk called Jacques de Voragine, in which he mentioned the story of Mary Magdalene. But this book, the Golden Legend, is not only a book focused on Mary Magdalene's life, it's also a book from the life of other saints, and it was for the Dominican, for them to learn how to teach the life of the saints. And of course, we have the life of Mary Magdalene, which is very interesting to study, to have more information about this tradition.
Did this tradition have some earlier beginnings as well? I mean, written beginnings. So we know that in the 13th century, a Dominican monk wrote it down, but are there any other written sources before that time?
Yes, we have especially one book. It's a travel book, we can say, a travel diary written by a German pilgrim at the 10th century, who mentioned the pilgrimage at the grotto, the pilgrimage for Mary Magdalene at the grotto of Saint Baume.
So that's fantastic. So it's the 10th century, but also can you explain to our listeners why the grotto? What did Mary Magdalene do in the grotto according to the French tradition?
So yes, at the end of her life, after preaching in different places, as I said, in Aix-en-Provence with Maximinus, in Marseille with her brother, where we can still find the places where they lived and preached, finally she decided to retire for any reason. We don't know especially why, but she retired in a grotto following a river called Uvonne, and she went in this mountain which is called La Sainte Baume. It means holy cave in our old traditional Provençal language. And she spent, according to the tradition and to Jacques de Voragine, the Golden Legend, she spent 40 years there before her death, and then after being buried by Maximinus, a very close friend, to the Basilica, where is now the crypt in the Basilica of Saint Maximin.
What I loved about the Golden Legend, that it actually, the way it describes Mary Magdalene reminds me very much the way the Gnostics describe Mary Magdalene, because the Dominican friar describes her as not only very beautiful, but also very learned woman who was also going to preach, who was a wonderful teacher.
Well, yes, she was. She has been asked. You remember the day of the Easter, the Sunday morning, when she went to the tomb to prepare the body of Jesus for death. She was, of course, she was the first witness of Jesus' resurrection, and Jesus asked her to go and spread the good news of his resurrection through the world, and she is really the one who has been elected by him. And it's not to me it's not by mistake, it's just in fact or by chance. It's just because she was elected and she was initiated by him and to the very, very close teachings of Jesus and the teachings which are shared in the Gnostic communities, of course.
That's right. So that's why I love it so much, because it reminded me very much of our common friend, if I can say, maybe friend to you, but I really admire him, Jean-Yves Leloup, who actually gave my favorite translation of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, first from into French, and then it was translated into English. And according to this Gospel, Mary Magdalene was actually chosen as one of the favorite disciples of Jesus. So I really, really love this tradition and appreciate, the parallel there. And in the Golden Age in the Golden Legend also, the Dominican friar says that she came from a very powerful family, so that she was not of a poor background, as traditional kind of medieval tradition in most places says, but in southern France, it was maintained that she came actually from a powerful tradition in the Holy Land, from a powerful family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was very well educated. Of course, she had a very good education because the family was very wealthy. They were part of the lineage of the David lineage, so they were very wealthy, very powerful in this place. And the family owned a district in Jerusalem, different properties also in Magdala, because sometimes she's called Mary of Magdala. Which they had also a big house in Bethany, and they were very very wealthy. And this was very interesting for the fact that they were wealthy, that they could help Jesus in his ministry, and they could support him financially to feed all these followers and all the community. So yes, Magdalene was someone with a very high education. Yeah.
I really love this interpretation of Mary Magdalene, who was very well educated, but also coming from a very high royal and even spiritual lineage of David. But I also like the idea of her family supporting the Jesus movement, because modern scholarship in academia also supports this idea. And an academic and a professor from United Kingdom, Candida Moss, actually mentions this in her work, that Mary Magdalene was in fact a financial supporter for Jesus's friends and his movement.
Yes, totally. Not only her, and we had also a very famous woman, Claudia Procula, who converted to Christianity. She was the Pontius Pilatus' wife, and so all these people give. And for Magdalene, even at the first meeting, she totally abandoned all her goods and all her wealth for Jesus, and to help him, to support him in his ministry. That's very interesting to see that, yes.
And another interesting part of the story of Mary Magdalene in France is the story of Black Sarah. And I know from our previous conversations that there are two different explanations for the story of Black Sarah, because to most English-speaking people, the Black Sarah is usually associated with the book of Margaret Starbert, The Woman with the Alabaster Jar, where Margaret Starbert claims that Sarah was the daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. But you have two different explanations that come from the Provençal tradition. Would you like to explain to us the two different traditions?
Yes, with pleasure. In fact, we have these two traditions, and we can see that that's very strange. They are totally opposite, but it's very funny to see the difference. In fact, we have the Provençal tradition, which is the way the Church explains officially the arrival of the disciples here on our shores. But in this tradition, the Sarah is the waitress of the two Marys, Marie Salome and Marie Jacobée, Virgin Mary's sisters. And they explained that when these people were thrown on this boat without horse and sail, she was on the dock, on the banks in the port, and she wanted to come with them to have the same destiny. And so one of the two Marys took her coat off and put it on the sea, so to make like a bridge, and for her to come inside the boat and traveled with them on their arrival in the Sainte Marie de la Mer. But on the other side, we have also another tradition, which is the gypsy tradition. And the gypsies don't think that Sarah was part of the group, and they rather think that, in fact, Sarah was part, and she was a queen of a tribe, of a Ligurian tribe, and she was already in the Sainte Marie de la Mer when the boat landed. We had at this time some peoples called Ligurians. They were coming from south of Italy, and they were traveling through all along the Mediterranean coast. And some of them made some settlements on the coast. And the gypsy traditions believe that, in fact, these people were already settled in the marshes of the Sainte Marie de la Mer, and Sarah was the queen, and she heard about one fisherman who came to tell her, yes, that a boat was arriving. And so she went on the shores, and when she saw the boat, she took her coat off and put it on the sea to make a bridge for them to go down. So
in both stories, yes, you have a coat, except that here she is the empowered woman and she is greeting them. I really love the story. I'm on the gypsy side, here, because it is a better story.
Yes.
So I love the story of a Black Sarah. Thank you. Thank you for explaining this, because there's a little bit of confusion about who really Sarah was. And so it really helps to knowing that there are two traditions in Southern France about it. And you told me that actually there are annual pilgrimages of gypsies coming to Southern France to honor the Black Sarah, which is called the Gypsy Black Madonna, right?
Yes, the Black Madonna Sarah is in fact their Madonna, and so every year the 24th of May, except of course two last years because of the COVID, but otherwise in the 24th of May we have all the very big gypsy community. They all come from all over the world, and this day they pay tribute to their Black Madonna Sarah. They have a special pilgrimage with a special ceremony, and that's very moving, and it's a very special ambience because the gypsies are very faithful in fact, but they have another way to show it, and that's really fabulous. Yes,
very colorful way. I saw the video. Yes. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but lots of music, lots of dancing, very joyful, celebratory. I loved it. But I know that also people in Southern France believe that there are actual relics of Mary Magdalene in Southern France. Do you believe in that? And have you seen them?
Of course, I believe that. we have this. We have the relics of Mary Magdalene here in the crypt of our basilica in Saint-Maximin-Saint-Baume, and because when she died, she didn't die at the grotto for the tradition, but she met the Bishop Maximin, very close friends, and she had the last sacrament for His hand, and so when she died, he buried her in, it was a pagan oratory at this time, but she was buried in this oratory, and in fact, which is now the crypt of the basilica. So we have a skull there because most of the bones have been, unfortunately, have been destroyed or burned during the revolution. But we still have bones, a little bit piece of flesh called the noli me tangere, which is in fact the marks, which is supposed to be the marks of Jesus' print. The day of Easter, when Magdalene saw him resurrected, she wanted to touch him, and he puts his two fingers on her forehead and saying, "Noli me tangere," don't touch me, don't approach me. And so we have this little piece of flesh which was still alive when they found the relics, which is kept in a little glass in the reliquary, and some pieces of bones, but not a lot.
That's very interesting, because actually in the National Geographic, maybe 3-4 years ago, I read that they tried to reconstruct the face from the skull, using 3D technology.
Yes.
So we could see exactly how her face could look like. I remember being really touched by that. It's this kind of reconstruction based on the skull, right? Based on the remains.
Yes, I attended the conference of Dr. Yves Carlier, who is the one who made the reconstitution. It was very interesting because, in fact, they couldn't take off the skull from the reliquary, but they took 400 pictures, and with the computers which are now very
advanced,
yes, so they could do the reconstitution of her face in different with different moments, and I have to tell that she's very beautiful.
Yes, she's very beautiful. I was really truly touched, because I actually didn't know about this relic, and now that it could be reconstructed and that you actually could see the face of this woman, it was actually a very moving experience.
Yes.
So, Veronique, I would like to ask you another question now about how alive is this tradition in Southern France, in Provence, because it's a particular part of Southern France, right, of Mary Magdalene. Do people feel still connected to Mary Magdalene in this part of France?
Oh yes, of course. Magdalene is the patron saint of Provence, first of all, and we have a lot of people who are coming to do this pilgrimage for any reasons. It's not only for a religious purpose, but sometimes for spirituality, or just simply to feel connected with her, and in this very important energy we can feel in the grotto and in the forest at the foot of the grotto we are crossing when hiking up. And we have also a very important festival in July, the 22nd week over the 22nd of July, which is Magdalene's feast day, and we have a lot of people coming from all over France. It's very crowded, and we celebrate. So Magdalene is still alive in our land in Provence here. Yes.
And Veronique, for our listeners, is obviously organizing this kind of tours, so you can connect with her if you're interested to going to Southern France and go in the footsteps of Mary Magdalene and this tradition. But before we wrap up this podcast, I would like Veronique to explain something, because we have this, as I already mentioned, this special connection with Jean-Yves Leloup. I adore him because I believe that his translation of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is supreme, and I also agree with him, and he's sometimes considered quite radical with the idea that Mary Magdalene was the companion of Jesus. But I know that you, Veronique, are planning another completely different retreat rather than pilgrimage for your groups and people who want to connect with you and with Mary Magdalene in 2022. Would you like to, that has to do something also with Jean-Yves Leloup. Would you like to tell us something about it?
Yes, I have. This is the project for next year. I would like to focus on a very special journeys, which is more focused on the contemplative tradition, and this is what also Jean-Yves Leloup is teaching in his retreat. I have the privilege to attend to, and I wanted to develop a kind of retreat more focused on spirituality and on healings using the energy of Mary Magdalene, and with this contemplative tradition, which is an Orthodox prayer. It is called the prayer of the heart, and we can learn it with Jean-Yves Leloup, and he is one who can transmit that. And in fact, this prayer of the heart is very powerful, and it helps us to reconnect to our inner being and to its divine nature. And when we practice this prayer step by step, we are moving toward the restoration of our inner being, and of course, therefore, our healing also. And it's very, very simple in its formulation, but it has some effects that make us enter to the path of our transformation. And that's really what I would like to develop with a kind of a spiritual retreat called Magdalene, the Retreat of the Heart, with less trips and less visits of sites, but more focus on this contemplative tradition Jean-Yves Leloup learned and now teaches, the tradition of the Desert Fathers.
So it's more of an internal pilgrimage rather than let's go and visit the places where she lived. It's more about going within and meeting Mary Magdalene in your heart.
Yes, totally right. It's of course I still want for the people to experience the energies of her presence in the forest, for instance, at the grotto, in different places, and also in the Orthodox monastery in Saint-Michel-du-Var, built also with Jean-Yves Leloup and the Orthodox, the French Orthodox Church. But yes, I would like for the people to stay closer to the heart. And you know, in the Gospel of Mary, the last sentence, page 17, Mary Magdalene said, said to Jesus, I go to silence. And I think that she said that it was the best place to learn and to hear the voice of Jesus. And I really think that this prayer is the best way to experience the connection with Magdalene and with the divine, to me.
This is so beautiful. When the borders open up in Australia, I hope to join you on this inner retreat one day. I would really love to do it.
Yes, you're welcome whenever you want.
Thank you. So Veronique, how can our listeners connect with you if they want to go on this inner or outer or both pilgrimage with you in the footsteps of Mary Magdalene in southern France?
So I have a website, it's magdalenesacredjourneys.com. So you can just contact me and have a look also on my blogs and researches on Magdalene and other topics on this website. And also you can contact me with Facebook, sending me a Facebook friend request under my name, Veronique Flayol.
Thank you so much, Veronique. And we have to wrap up now. So we have to end this podcast, but I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm pretty sure that many of our listeners will connect with you as well.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you. With pleasure.
Absolute pleasure each time for me as well. So for our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, sign in to the Other Goddess podcast. You can find the extended version of my conversation with Veronique on my YouTube channel, Dr. Joanna Kujawa, and consider buying my book, The Other Goddess, Mary Magdalene and the Goddesses of Eros and Secret Knowledge. Until next time.